Hello and welcome to this digital camera magazine video tutorial. In this lesson we're going to show you how to use adjustment layers to convert your color digital image into black and white. Now the beauty of this technique is that you can save the file down as a PSD file and then later on you can reopen it and readjust the adjustment layers to change the contrast and the tonal range of the image. So to get started, we're going to first of all just create a duplicate of the background layer. Now to do this, if we right click or hold down Control left click, and we get a drop down menu and we can select duplicate layer. Alternatively, much quicker way to do that is just to click on the background layer, make sure it's selected, and just drag it up to the new layer icon at the top of the layers palette. This will automatically create a new background copy layer. Once we've done this, the next stage is to desaturate the image. And this will basically do exactly the same as by going up to Image, Mode and Grayscale, but we can then go in and apply more adjustment layers and correct the contrast and the tonal range. So to do this, again over to the adjustment layers and we choose Hue and Saturation. This will bring up the Hue Saturation dialog window. And if we just take a very quick look at the options here, first of all we have Edit, and we're going to adjust all of the colours in the picture, so we choose Master, but you can go in and you can choose reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, depending on if you're what type of adjustment you're doing. Underneath that we've got the hue, so if we have a play around with that you'll see all the colours changing and you can get some quite odd effects, nice pinky purple lighthouse there. If we go down to saturation, if your image is looking a little bit washed out, normally you could just increase the saturation just to really draw out those colours. This one, the saturation is quite bright anyway. Lightness obviously makes the picture lighter or darker depending on the exposures. Okay, so we're going for black and white, so we'll need to adjust the saturation. But before we do that, just make sure that the Colorize radio button is unchecked, and because we want to see the effect of the desaturation, just make sure you've clicked the Preview radio button. Okay, once you've done that, just click on the slider for the saturation and take that down to -100, and you'll instantly see the effect of that and all of the colour has been removed from the picture. Once you're happy, just click OK. And the next thing we want to do is just to set our black and white points. So if your image is a little bit washed out, then you can use that just to really draw in the contrast and just put a little bit more punch in the image. Now this picture is quite contrasty anyway, so it doesn't really look like it needs too much adjustment with the levels. But to do this, we once again go over to our adjustment layers, just left click, go down to levels, and we get the familiar levels histogram appearing. And here we go, and we can see over on the left hand side we've got quite a lot of black information on the histogram, and over on the right we can see the lighter information, and in the middle is our midtones. So you can see by the way that the histogram is, we've got a lot more darker information in the image than we do with the light. And if you look very carefully, just right down here at the bottom of the bottom left histogram, we can actually see that that goes almost all the way over to the left hand side, which means we've probably got pretty much absolute black in the image anyway. Now with a picture like this, it's normally a good idea just to use the sliders, that way you don't lose too much of the tonal information, and you can see round the actual lighthouse itself, the white areas, it's a little bit bleached out. So we can set the black and white points, but because of the contrast it won't actually make that much difference. If your image is quite low contrast, then use the set black and set white points just to add that impact. If I just demonstrate here, I'll just click on a dark area and then on the lighter area. We can see the effect that that's had on the image. It's really just kicked out the contrast, and if anything, just a little bit too much. So if we just click that to reset back to where we came in, and what we're going to do is just use the sliders just to lighten up the whole image slightly and just get a little bit more tonal information just around the base of the lighthouse. And we can also use the midtones and the gamma slider just to adjust the image a little bit more and really start to bring out some of the detail that's been lost in the wall. Once you're happy with that, again just click OK. If we just click the little eye next to the adjustment levels layer, we can actually see the effect that the levels has had on the image. And you can see it's just brought it out and just added that little bit of extra impact to the picture. So once we've done that, the next thing we want to do is to apply a traditional coloured filter. But before we do that, we're just going to click back on our background copy image, because if we leave it on the levels and then start to apply a coloured filter over the top, the hue saturation layer, which is underneath, won't be applied to that layer and we'll get a slight orange or yellow hue, or depending on what filter we use. So make sure you've got the background copy selected, then go back up to the adjustment layers, and just down there on the third section you'll see the photo filter. So if you just open that, and we get the dialog window, and it has a series of filters which are actually built in. The default is the warming filter, but if we click down we can see that there's a variety of different filters there. Then if we just click once again, much easier on a PC than a Mac. On a Mac you'll have to go down and select each one individually. On a PC we can just use our cursor keys just to quickly flip through and see the different effects that each of the filters has on the image. Now if we take a quick look at the yellow filter, that's actually bringing back quite a lot of the tonal information of the lighthouse, whereas the red one's just adding a little bit too much contrast. And if you're familiar with the old traditional black and white film filters, the colours really do and have a similar effect on the picture as the traditional equivalent. At the bottom of the screen we'll see density, and this just increases the effect that the filter will have on the image. So we're at 25, which is always a good sort of starting point. If we slide that up we can see the effect that the filter has. If we move it too high we're starting to get the introduction of a bit too much noise. So we'll just slide it to about 40%, and we've got quite a nice tonal range coming out now on the lighthouse there. So once we're happy, again we just click OK. Now what you can do, which just to finalise the image, is just to create another levels layer, and this one is just really to tweak the midtones. So if we go back down to our adjustment layers and to our levels, and it brings up the adjustment layer levels. Now we can use this one just to tweak the midtones, and if we just do a little bit of a adjustment there on the midtones, and we can just again just increase the punch of the midtones within the image. Once we're happy with that we can click OK, and there we have our final adjustment layer black and white conversion. Obviously before you print you're going to need to flatten that image down, so we can go over to more and flatten image, and that will flatten all of those adjustment layers and your original colour image down, ready for printing. Obviously if you want to come back and readjust the image, then save it down as a PSD file.